Hey everyone, it's Terrence Branley with the Grow IT Partners podcast, and today I have Bob Sharon of Blue IoT. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Terrence.
Well, you've got a fantastic business model, very unique, and I want to just dive right into it because I think we're going to have a great conversation, and I'm going to have a lot of questions for you. So, but first off, maybe tell us about your background and just kind of give us a quick overview of Blue IoT.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, I come from an IT background. In fact, my first job was operating an old IBM 360 with cards, which was ancient when I got there, and it was
How big was that, by the way?
Sorry,
how big was that?
It filled a room, and it had 64K RAM on it. The old teletype machine, and had the dishwashers for the discs. And the card reader, and very running assembler, which is machine language. So that was my first job. Then I got into mid-range systems in the 90s, and in fact I got into cybersecurity in '93. We flew out Gil Shwed from Israel, ran seminars around the country. This is for Checkpoint. And 1 year later in '94, we sold our first firewall, Checkpoint Firewall 1, version 1.0. Then in the early 2000s, I got into data centers and worked for companies like Emerson, now Vertiv, and really enjoyed the data center space. And to this day, I judge data centers globally for the Broad Group, for the Data Cloud Global Awards. I do that for fun. And just something to give back to the community. It's really enjoyable. And in fact, it was because of data centers and the fact that they take 3% of the world's power in such a small footprint that led me down a sustainability path. And with that sustainability path, I thought, how can we make a difference in the sustainability space in smart buildings? There's enough claptrap and talk to sink a Titanic. Everyone's talking ESG and all of these wonderful motherhood statements, but who's actually doing stuff on the ground other than buying green power, putting up solar panels? They're the easy things to do. But what are people really doing in their buildings and places to save on water, to save on energy, and to get rid of waste? And so hence I came up with Blue IoT, as in the blue economy, leveraging the Internet of Things. So Internet of Things is just an enabler, right?
That's what I was just going to ask you. Obviously, for people that don't know what IoT is, right? Just kind of maybe give us an overview of that, of what IoT is. And again, that's
IoT is very simple. Let's not complicate it. It's a bunch of stuff connected to each other over the internet. That's it, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It can be your phone. It can be your laptop. Whatever it is, it's stuff connected to each other over the internet. That is the Internet of Things. It is really simple. Let's not overcomplicate this. Right? Some people love to go into a long spiel about how it should, what it is, but that's it. Right?
Well, and the great part about it, by the way, is the acronym itself, IoT, Internet of Things. Like, they didn't get overcomplicated. It's like, it's a bunch of things that are connected to the internet.
Yeah, that's it. So all we're doing is leveraging IoT as an enabler. And so we don't sell IoT, because what's IoT going to do for you? What's IoT going to do for a customer? So it's not about selling technology. It's about selling a solution. So what's the solution? We're going to, move towards carbon net zero, or we're going to save a lot of energy and in fact just save on the bottom line. Very simple. Or are we going to improve our health and well-being? So we're going to improve air quality. And with new standards that have just come out in the United States about air quality, it's a big deal. And what about getting rid of water waste? And what about predictive maintenance? How can we prevent unplanned maintenance and things breaking down, and then extend the asset life of infrastructure by 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years, and a whole lot of things like that. So that's basically what we're trying to achieve. And we're put up a platform Mind you, we've made enough mistakes to sink a Titanic, I can tell you.
No one ever gets it right the first time, though.
I can write a book on how not to do stuff, and I'm still learning heaps.
That makes two of us.
So hence we're actually moving to a new platform. So Encompass Blue is the name of our platform. Blue as in blue economy, and encompassing a whole bunch of things. And so that way we're now releasing Encompass Blue Mark II, and we're moving to AWS, to Amazon Web Services.
Okay.
Because in our own cloud, we're finding it very difficult to scale. And the only way to do this properly is to scale and basically allow self-service. So where we have two options. One, if someone wants a total package and they want all the sensors, they want all the sub-metering, and they want all the kit, fine. That's option A. But option B, they might have all this stuff already. They might be measuring it, but maybe they're not happy with their current provider, or they want to do more, or they want real insights, which they're not getting. All they're doing is monitoring it. There are, the statistics show that people have got all this data, but what do we do with it?
Yeah.
And no one's doing anything with it. So, then we can take this and ingest it, and we can pick it up via APIs or gateways or however they want to do it. It doesn't matter. We can pick it up, and then we can put it up on our dashboards. We can alert, we can analyze, we can have the analytics and come back with insights, and even go into where we do control of buildings from the cloud and the edge, and manage them better to improve. So we both have the edge, we have the cloud, and we're able to bring it all together and try and achieve something.
So what are the pain points, or what are the prospects and clients that you talk with? What are their pain points? What are the challenges they're trying to solve, or what are some of the desired outcome? I mean, some of it can be, in cost savings to make things more effective in terms of cost effectiveness. Mm-hmm. Some can be, maybe aligned with ESG type initiatives, but maybe, kind of talk a little bit about some of the reasons why someone would look at your service or solution.
Well, one of them is definitely cost savings, right? Obviously, times are getting harder. People are looking to reduce their costs further. So how can they do it without impacting, customers or guests or patients in a hospital, whatever the case may be? Mm-hmm. And so reducing cost, energy is always a big one. And energy is going up and has been going up lately. Like here, it's gone up about, commercially 50% in recent times. In Europe and the EU, it's gone up a lot more than that. So people are looking to reduce their costs, and they're looking to reduce maintenance. They're also looking for one pane of glass, because they might have 5 disparate systems, and they're going to go here for that, or there's nothing on this particular system unless it breaks. So they want to see something on one system and not have all these disparate different platforms or systems, some of which are visible and some of which are not, and the older ones are certainly not. How can we get visibility? How can we see all the data at least? So when there is a problem, okay, right, and it can at least be seen, and it can be sorted very quickly, at least from the visible data. So that's definitely another pain point. The other one now is people are starting to look at assets and how can we get more out of our assets. So if we're able to run it better and not stress it out so much, we can extend the life. A simple example is a pump to pump water around for a chiller in a building. Mm-hmm. It typically what happens is people just wait until it breaks, right? The bearings have busted, the wirings are worn, whatever. It's had its life after 15 years or whatever, and it breaks. You're going to replace the whole thing. But if we know how it's performing, either by measuring the power and or vibration sensors, what we're able to do is predict that there's a problem. and in fact months, not even weeks, but months before, we can say, okay, there's a problem. We need to call, have a planned maintenance, call a contractor in. They come in, they have a look. Oh, okay, the bearings are wearing out. Look, we'll order the parts in. We'll get them in 3 weeks, and we'll have a planned maintenance. Then this pump goes on for another 10 years, and so we've saved a whole lot of carbon because we don't have to buy a new one. And we've saved a lot of money because all we've done is a maintenance repair to keep it going for another 10 years.
Yeah, extended the lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's big. And again, I've been around this space a little bit to know that they now have IoT, right? Industrial Internet of Things. I know. Yeah. And that's fascinating to me because I think there's so much legacy infrastructure that probably businesses haven't connected to the internet in order to get this data. And this is big. I think this is a really important run, Mike, because not only from the standpoint of, like you mentioned, the obvious one is, extending the life cycle, understanding the life cycle, effectively maintaining, those assets. But more importantly, when you start talking about the ESG, initiatives, right? That ties into it as well. So it touches a lot of different spaces. And because there's so much legacy assets that are out there that were not built with the intention of being connected, this is where the IoT comes into play. Is that all right? And I want to get your take on this because to me it's fascinating.
Correct. Absolutely spot on. Some people think they have to replace everything and replace the infrastructure. And a lot of companies go to them and saying, oh, look, we'll make you more energy efficient. Spend your $5 million on replacing your chillers and your air handling units and the whole HVAC systems. No need. I mean, you might go in and replace your actuators, of course, and get all that and get all that up to date. But that's a small cost. But the point is, what we're able to do now is pick up the data and then inform and then have predictive maintenance rather than reactive maintenance, and reduce your unplanned maintenance quite dramatically. But so in ESG terms, we can save anywhere from 10 to 50% of total energy, and are up to, this is a max case, 70% of carbon emissions within a building, which is huge. But then you've got the human aspect now. So you have well rating, for example, on the human environmental side within a building. And so more and more now, what has been revealed, especially post-COVID, is that if your ventilation system is not working properly, then people are more likely to get sick. And they used to call it sick building syndrome, which many people ignored because they didn't want to spend money. But the evidence is out. And in fact, we're involved in a research project in the transfer of viruses and bacteria down to the pathogen level.
Wow.
And what we're trying to do is mitigate risk. And so instead of, doing a once a year, swab of the air handling unit, which hardly gives you anything, what we've found, for example, is if the CO2 levels are at 1,500 parts per million in an area, you can catch COVID from someone nearby just like that. And a cold or a flu would be at a figure somewhat higher than that. You'll catch it like that. Now, if we can check, and we can with wireless battery-operated sensors, but put a lot of them around, we can determine how good or bad the ventilation system is. And quite often it might be good in some places, but not good in other places. And it's those areas we want to identify and then rectify, because we do remediation as well, and make sure that we're mitigating the risk, even of catching a cold. So people become healthier, happier, and more productive. This is definitely the way of the future. I'm a bit frustrated because the take-up of technology in Australia is very slow. We're quite backward. This is where we're trying to do things and move to the US and the EU, where the take-up of technology, I think, is a bit stronger because they're not stuck to the old ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I should have mentioned at the very beginning that you're joining us from the land down under, but I figured with that accent that most people would be able to see right through and hear right through. So, but at any rate, what so I know that you've talked about, it sounds like healthcare is one area.
Mm,
Obviously, industrial kind of is another.
mm,
Maybe people love success stories, right? They love hearing how these things can be implemented, even
mm,
it may not be in their exact industry, but
mm,
understanding some success stories of how you were successfully implementing the service and solution into a
mm.
business, and they can kind of leverage that and understand how that might be applicable to their business. So maybe if you can give us kind of a success story from a healthcare side and maybe from the industrial side.
Yeah, well, perhaps if we go first, we had an office building. It was a council office building. Was our first project in 2018, and so we were first to actually manage a building using an IoT protocol called LoRaWAN. LoRa stands for long range. So it's
Okay.
long range wide area network. It's a global standard. It's used in the United States. It's used in Europe. It's used everywhere. And it sits in our regions on the 915 to 928 megahertz frequency. And it's radio. The benefit of radio is it's got a lower cybersecurity risk because it's radio, it's RF. Secondly, it spreads all over the place. It's omnidirectional. And in line of sight, it goes up to 10 kilometers. So I can have, or 6 miles, 6.3 miles in the US imperial
Thanks for the
state.
conversion.
So on that basis, you can put a sensor in the ground and go up to that far to a gateway. And then it's low power. So I can have battery operated sensors going for, well, depending on the frequency, up to 10 years on one set of batteries.
Wow.
So this is the benefit. So we were first to be able to control a building using this protocol through a building management system from the cloud. And that first building, we saved 21% of total building energy.
Wow.
And it was about 47% of HVAC energy that we
Wow.
saved from that first site. Then we got we got to a big sports gaming facility. So this would work great for casinos and big hotel casinos and that kind of thing. Not that I donate money to that cause, but I'm sure there's plenty of others that wish to, and that's fine for them. But in this case, we saved 25% of total energy, and we saved them $186,000 of electricity billing last year alone, which was very substantial. So that certainly made a difference. And then we go to, for example, we go to a hotel. So Marriott. We have a 5-star hotel in Sydney, Pier 1. It's an autograph hotel, one of those boutique hotels.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a 140-year-old building, the old wool sheds by the wharf in Sydney. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And there we were able to take full control of a very complicated system. They're even using water from the bay. And we're able to change some of the modes in the way it runs, and obviously save energy there, and try and bring more of their disparate systems into one pane of glass. So whether it's a hotel, whether it's in the medical space, what we've also done are indoor air quality audits, where we place a whole range of sensors, and they're just batteries. So it's real easy. So we can even do double-sided tape if they're temporary, and put them on for a 1-month audit. And that way we have 24/7 data in a whole area to determine the quality of the ventilation in peak periods, in off-peak periods. We're not going around with a sensor in my hand at a particular point in time, which is the old way of doing things. And then we're able to pinpoint where the problems are. Now, in the medical space, this would have to be a no-brainer. But when I've asked hospitals and things here to do things like that, they don't want to know. So I can see and especially in America, duty of care, I can imagine the legal ramifications of not showing duty of care, because the spreading of any viruses and bacteria within a hospital from staff to patients, patients to patients, you can imagine. So I think this has to be shown, because there's real value. It's about returning that value and understanding and then doing something about it.
What is, you mentioned value. I mean, what is the, the value proposition? What's the most significant value that you feel that Blue IT and your firm can bring to, businesses and potential clients?
Well, what we do, especially on a number of the newer projects, we go to the point of offering performance guarantees. So that is, we even claim government rebates. So in the two biggest states of Australia, Victoria and New South Wales, we facilitate government rebates based on energy savings. So, for example, we have another proposal waiting for acceptance. We've been told it would be by another very large hotel within the Marriott chain in Melbourne, where we would give them a 1.2-year payback after the government rebate, which is incredible. When you're spending a lot of money, that's a fantastic return.
Yeah.
But even then, within this country, people are hesitant, and I can't rack my brain. So I need to set up shop in the United States. In fact, our executive chairman is in Silicon Valley, in the US. But look, without government rebates, typically we're well under 3 years. So we have an excellent business case, an ROI, and we're able to watch that and work with customers on that basis. So if people are looking for a good return, and it could be a retail chain where you've got thousands of stores around the country, and I know in the US, of course, there's many such organisations, and one would be very easily able to manage, put them all under one pane of glass, and compare them, even award prizes to the best managers of the different stores, do these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Encourage them in a positive way, and really extract big savings, and better comfort as well, both from a human perspective, because within that we can even have basic levels of air quality measuring as part of the service, and there's just so much value that can be added. Not just in terms of that energy saving, but reduction in unplanned maintenance, improvement in visibility, and picking up more data and comparing sites to see how can we do it, and then the move towards digital twins. And as we go to, and initially we're doing low-cost digital twins, not the really fancy schmancy top grade stuff, but trying to keep it cost effective, then we're able to really enhance the user experience and how the whole thing works.
When you say digital twins, what do you mean by that?
Again, it's a simple definition, and that is it's a digital replica of what you are trying to do. So in this case, to keep it low cost, we're not doing a full digital image of the whole facility, whether it's a shopping centre or a hotel, or an office building or a hospital, or a shopping mall. What it is we go into the switchboards, to the plant rooms. We can even just take good pictures with the camera, right, for low cost, and then import that. And AWS has a fantastic tool within it. And within that twin maker, we're able to bring in a low cost digital twin, so people can identify, okay, this is where this plant room is, and the contractors can go find it. Oh, this is where this item is on the, in the switchboard. It can easily be identified. Again, for practical purpose, to save money, save time, and so it can again be effective low cost tool.
What sort of trends are you seeing that may help or hinder your advancement of your business model, right? I mean, when you start talking about return on investment and payback period, when you're going to a down economy, right, it may be a little bit more difficult. But when you look at some ESG initiatives that are coming into play, that actually can kind of be the wind at your sails. But what are some other trends? Maybe again, AI always comes up in this conversations, right? I know. But what are some of the trends that you see that could help or hinder you in your business model?
Well, definitely, look, the AI part is a definite one that's going to assist it. So AI is a given in this industry. So as we move to AWS, which we're doing now, 2024 is going to be a year of a lot of AI, and the idea of that is to help enhance performance with all sorts of machine learning algorithms, with all sorts of other advanced code that will assist us in providing either advice or automating the optimization of systems, which will save even more and provide a better level of service as well. The other trend is also moving towards, I guess, a more holistic approach, and that is a combination of your ESG. So we're trying to look at not only energy, which is more of your scope 1 and 2, but what about your scope 3? So, what about, the human elements? What about the waste? What are we doing about waste? How do we manage that? So it's a circular economy model. And what are we doing about, and that comes into your asset life extension as well. So there's a whole lot of things. So people are trying to work out how do we report on scope 3 emissions, because that's the hardest thing to report on. So people are trying to work that out. So we're going to see a lot more trends in that space. But I think what's happening is we've got a lot of consultation going, like, with the big five about ESG to their large global customers. This is what you should do. What we haven't seen a lot of is how that's filtering down to the grassroots. So a lot of motherhood stuff. Governments are very good at doing this motherhood stuff, but how do we do it in a way that is effective, and that's not going to, cause people to be, out of jobs without replacements of those jobs, and do it in a sustainable way. I think this is a very important thing. So sometimes people getting overzealous. I think we've seen in Europe now, in the EU, they're starting to say, hold on, these carbon emission reduction targets that we had is not sustainable, excuse the pun. They've got to make some adjustments,
Good choice of words.
Yeah, well, I thought it was appropriate. So we need to make it sustainable for everyone. And so there's a holistic approach. And so we need to look at that. And that includes health and well-being, and includes all of these things. So in the last few years, we're starting to see this stronger emphasis on health and well-being. I mean, people, they're either living and working at home in large residential buildings and apartments, and office buildings and wherever else they're working. So we need to improve our health. And so it starts, in how the systems operate in these facilities. So these are the trends. The blockages to these is old thinking, or, people are used to dealing the way they're dealing, and, they're dealing with their mates and they just like to maintain it and they don't want to look at anything new. And people don't like to change. So, in our country, we're very good at that. So we get a 10 out of 10.
Change is coming. I mean, again, that's probably the biggest trend that I see. And again, when I first came into the, business environment, it was right around, I think I was probably a few years in to the business world when the internet came about. And that I remember very vividly how, as a young person coming into the world, and I was like, hey, this is going to be great. The experienced managers and higher levels up were like, for lack of better words, they were freaking out. Right. And, just the discussions that revolved around that. And then now, I see what's happening with AI and data and the advancement of IoT and connecting legacy assets. And it's just, I just think it's going to make, the original don't want to say the original, but when the internet came about into the business world, I think this is going to make it look, minuscule in terms of the impact that it can have.
Mm,
It's just
mm,
amazing. But uh, let me ask you about like the kind of path that a new client would take with you. And you had mentioned something earlier about kind of a smaller scope
mm.
of a project, not having to go wide. But maybe if you can give me kind of a couple of examples of what that path looks like of when you start working with a new client, and what that
Okay,
involves.
well, there's I guess two kinds. One is a pure monitoring client where we're looking at either air quality or we're looking at metering of water, power, energy, even gas. So that kind of customer is relatively simple. So we're able to firstly understand what the facilities look like. We're then able to put a proposal together on, okay, we need this many sensors, we've got this many meters, we can work out what the installation cost is going to be. And then we put that together. They look at that, they sign off on it, and then we're able to put everything in within that's relatively straightforward. So typically it can happen within a few weeks. And then the dashboards are up, everything is up, and we're providing that service. It could be counting people too, because they want to know how many people have gone through in a particular space or a building. So that's quite straightforward in that sense. We have the other type where we're going into full building and energy management, which is where the real savings and the big energy savings are going to come. So again, we look at the facility, we go through it, we get detailed information, we get energy bills for the last 12 months, and we get plans, we get all the detail. We do a thorough desktop audit, and then we're able to come up with all the components we need, and that includes energy management, so a lot of power metering on everything and all the major infrastructure. As a wise person once said, we can't manage what we don't know, so we need to pick up a whole lot of data points there. And most of these facilities have old building management systems. They're legacy. And there's no point keeping legacy systems because they're a hindrance to performance improvement. They're proprietary and they're problematic, so I have to throw them away. If it's 5 years old, that's different. You're not going to throw that away, but typically they're much older. They're 15, 20, 25 years old. They're not worth keeping. They've had their run. So we then provide the proposal with a business case and an ROI. So there's always a business case and an ROI. So it makes it for any CFO. It makes it real easy, right? It's not a problem. And then it gets signed off, and then we will then start the implementation project, and we start off with a stakeholder workshop, engage with all the stakeholders to understand all kinds of things, how we engage, how we then proceed, what are their preferences, what do they want out of this, what's their wish list. If we can give them the wish list, we will as well. Sometimes we can give it within the same cost. It's like some people think it will be too expensive, but there are many line items that, hold on, the way we implement the technology, it's not going to cost anymore. Not always, but quite often it can. And if we can do it, we will, right? Because we want to look after our customers and then implement it. And then once it's implemented, a tune-up period, although it's constantly tuning, but then we're measuring everything and we're able to provide all the data. All the new services will have self-reporting. So on the dashboards, they'll be able to download the reports, see the savings, and get the alerts. And in fact, the new system will be self-service alerting, where the FMs can go in and set their thresholds, who gets what when, whether it's an SMS or an email. And it's quite comprehensive, and compare data on demand, which again is quite unique in our new service.
What's an average? I mean, I can see the huge advantage of this. What would I have a couple questions there. One was, you had mentioned some of the things that some of your customers want to see and they want to have, right? They're kind of like, hey, can you do this? What are some of the? Give me an example of a few of those that I don't even know what you would call them, like goodies, I would call them, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, but basically, what they want is they want to see see things from any device.
Yeah.
Because what happens if they're home, on a Sunday? Uh, Sometimes if the system was newer, they could dial in, to their system. If it's an old system, they can't even do that, right? They have to go to site, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
pain, right? So they want to be able to see it, and if they can even see it here on the phone, uh, then it makes life a lot easier for them. But what they're saying now, and the feedback we're getting, is they want to have the correlation on demand. So they want to be able to see different points of data sets on demand. Mark One system didn't have that. You'd go individually, you'd check, and you'd see, and you'd get all the data. The new system will have this because it has been requested, and it's becoming a popular request, and it makes perfect sense. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
always planning to do it, and so by our move to AWS, to Amazon Web Services, it just means that we will be offering this as a service to our clients, so they can just pick on demand if they want to select, okay, how much energy was this chiller using, and this supply and return air fan, and then the actuator, at what percentage was it open for the damper for here, and I don't know, whatever else. They can click, 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 and okay, let's get it on the graph, and let's see, right, okay, well, hold on, what happened here? This didn't open when it should. Now, in the system, especially in the Mark II system, there will be automatic alerts going out because that should have opened and it didn't. And that then suggests that there's a problem, either with the system working or there's an actuator or damper that's stuck. And this is common in older facilities.
I would think my next question was going to tie into it a little bit, and that is, what is a best case, worst case, or even an average, return on investment or payback? Because I can, as we're talking through this, I can absolutely see, right? Not only, because again, there obviously is the investment in some of the new infrastructure to replace some of the legacy, but at the same time, the ability to even remotely monitor, right? And again, I'm sure in the business case, you're pulling all this in, but the ability to have, one person or a smaller group of people that's remotely monitoring all these things to be proactive, the effectiveness of that, and to be able to, initiate the cost savings, I'm sure comes into your business plan. But, I would think it'd be a pretty easy sell. I can't imagine this. I mean, again, I don't want to sound like I'm going on the soapbox being a salesperson for you, but I just can't imagine it being a difficult sell. What is your average type of payback period on something like that?
Well, it is. In this country, it's a difficult sell. But anyway,
I think you need to start going global then.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the plan. But basically, there's a couple of things. So, for example, we've got a big private school with a big campus where they've got old pipes between the buildings. So we're monitoring the water flows, and we've tracked a lot of water leakage. So we see unusual water usage, and we've probably saved them hundreds of thousands of litres of water in wasted water over the last 12 months or so. And so that's a big savings because water's getting more and more expensive. So on that side, the system would have paid for itself within a few months on that side of it. And then we're doing vape detection in toilets because vaping has become a major problem. And even in public schools, it's out of control. In private schools, like this one, is a very exclusive private school, a very good school. But yet it's a problem everywhere. But the system's working beautifully, and it's the only Australian designed system. And we're the only system in the world doing it with LoRaWAN in that protocol with the lowest false positives, because a lot of systems that are out there, though, they do their job, but the problem is there's lots of false positives, whereas we have the least false positives because of the way that we did our calibration, which is quite unique. And so, again, there's a payback here, and the payback is for better health and well-being. In terms of air quality, we're monitoring 100 classrooms for air quality, and we saw that CO2 levels were going far too high. And we put remediation plans in to exhaust the excess CO2. It was supervised by an eminent professor, and we took out 2/3 of this. For this, we won an award from the Facilities Management Association of Australia.
Oh, wow.
But what's important is some early data is coming now where the absentee rate, sick rate, is reducing as a result. There's a payback here, right? And so again, it's payback in terms of health and well-being as well as monetary payback. But I guess the best case we've had so far in return on investment would be just over 2 years in terms of monetary paybacks. But on some of the new projects after rebates, we're looking at 1.2 years.
And there's probably that's significant, right? And there's probably ancillary benefits like you just mentioned that come in that when fully utilizing, everything, that they start to see some other benefits, like you mentioned, the health side of things. I would imagine there's a number of those that all of a sudden that that a business owner, a school, university, a healthcare system, right, will realize. It's kind of like, reminds me in business, right? If something doesn't get monitored, it doesn't get done, right? If you're not tracking data and looking at KPIs, guess what? It doesn't get addressed, right? And it's probably very similar to what you're doing. You're helping them identify problems that they've just gone under the radar, right? And not addressed. And finding ways. That's what I find fascinating. And that's really what I was going to ask you. Your next question is what is it that you enjoy most about what you do?
Well, before I get onto that, the other classic is on the ESG side is solar. So many people are putting up solar arrays, which is great. The problem is they're monitoring the power, like how much is it generating, but they don't know if it's working to spec or not. In other words, you might have a 100 kilowatt array, but then again, for a given irradiance, that is, how much irradiance is coming through, could be cloudy, could be, you don't know. And so it might be a 100 kilowatt array, and at max performance, it'll be producing about, 78 or 80 kilowatt hours or kilowatts per hour. But, it might only be doing 60 for perfect irradiance. But no one knows that, it shouldn't be. So if you measure irradiance and we measure and match it to the specification, and we did this for a big government council, we become policemen on the block and independent arbiter. So then when it's not producing to specification, there's energy waste. It could be dirt on the panels, birds did something on them, some faulty panels that are not coming up or alerting, whatever. Or it's substandard, right? In other words, the vendors were telling porky pies. So what we're able to do is report on it, and then the client can then, alert their contractor, or we can alert directly. They go out, check it out. Yeah, there was a problem with this or this or this. So we get rid of energy waste, production waste. That's money that we're saving. That's another very valuable service in this world of carbon emission reductions.
It all adds to the bottom line.
And what I like the best, I guess, is when I see we do achieve something for customers. That to me is the highlight. Is the most important thing. And then when we get recognised for our achievements, because the awards that we've won is the result of achievements and for what our team has achieved. So it's not me, it's our team. We can't do it without the team that is able to do it, and we're constantly looking for good team members and people even in the United States that we want to start up with over there in order to do that. So trying to work out where should be a good home state to set up shop and do stuff, because I have relatives in the United States. So
listen, I'll tell you, you're welcome to set up shop here in Boise, Idaho. But I'm just going to warn you, we don't have the weather that you do down there. Today we got our first snow, which threw my whole schedule off. So you might want to pick something further south if you want to get a similar climate to what you're used to. Well. If a business owner, executive, a building, commercial building owner, university, government, is watching our conversation today and wondering if you can, help them, what would you tell them is a good next step? Not only how to get in touch with you, but just what's a good next step that they can look at?
A good step is to first find out, well, what is it you want to achieve? Okay, well, is it a cost saving, or is it a carbon emission reduction target? Is it, what is it? If you're exploring, then I'm always happy to have that exploratory discussion. So, I'm always happy to get on a Teams meet and have a chat. That doesn't cost $1. Worst case, we have a nice chat, say good day, talk about possibilities, and if I give you some guidance on the call and that helps you down the line, that's fantastic. So I'm happy to impart that knowledge, no worries at all. If it does lead to something, that's great, and then maybe we can assist. If we find the right clients in the US that can give us that bouncing board to set up in the US, obviously a first large customer would have some benefits in doing so, and that would be fantastic, because we'd love to partner with people over there. So again, it could be a big retailer, it could be a big hospital operator, it could be a chain of hotels, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We can help in any of those. But like I said, first thing, happy to have a chat. And it's not going to cost a dime.
I love that. I'm big on that. I'm big on the value for proposition. And I always say to people, it's funny because even just for the podcast and inviting people, on to have these conversations, and sometimes they'll ask, what is the cost? And I say, there's no cost other than your time, right? Your time and my time that we spend together. It's the only cost, right? And at the very end, we'll have a nice high level conversation, and hopefully you'll leave, better because of it. And I will as well. So, I think you can never go wrong with that.
Absolutely. And I certainly appreciate the time.
Oh no, I've loved this. And that's what I was going to say to you. What I want to do is make sure that we circle back on this and say, in 6 and 12 months, so that we can see where your expansion point is in the United States. Number one, and number two, find out how many more awards you've gained, and to keep going. It's a great business model. I think it's fantastic, and for a number of different reasons. I think a lot of times we get, caught up in the business side of things, which is all driven to, like you said, the international sign for money. But at the same time, there's, other important things involved in it in terms of health and whatnot that, are critical too.
I believe we can achieve a win-win in every regard. So yes, save money, help save a good amount of carbon emissions. And we can do it all together and improve health and well-being. So if we can improve all of that at once, it really is a win-win. And it truly is sustainable in a circular economy type sense. So, I do need excuses to get over. Got relatives in New York, in Texas, in California. So I need some excuses. So
you've got them, and now you have an additional location in Boise, Idaho that you're welcome to come, and we'll help you as well. So
beautiful part of the world, I believe.
I love it. I would not. People always comment on the picture in the background. I always tell them that's what it looks like. Beautiful. It just doesn't look like in my office here, but that's what it looks like outside.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, Bob, listen, it was great having you today. I really enjoyed our conversation. I really enjoyed learning about Blue IoT, and I think, like I said, I'm not just saying this to say it. I really think it's a fantastic business model, and I want to make sure that when we come back in 6 or 12 months and have a subsequent conversation, that we get to talk about the fantastic growth that you've incurred. So, but thank you very much for your time,
and thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thanks again. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah. Really appreciate it, Terrence. Thank you.
Anytime, Bob. Anytime.
No worries.